Welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns. Here we are. It's another Sunday that we are coming to you. And I would say live, but we're live right now, but it's not live on Sunday.
I'm still living.
Still living.
We're live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I felt like how you hit our bumper like intro. I felt like I needed to be playing some ska horns behind that, you know, and yeah, just unicorns. Yeah.
Unicorns.
Yeah.
You know, get some reverb going on it.
I hear on KXRT they have an ad of like, yeah, and you know, Monster Truck Mike is going to be here with us to advertise for gasoline, you know, and he's like,
gasoline really needs advertising.
I have no idea, like, you know, and so
man.
yeah, it's weird, but then you get the, you know, big Cookie Monster voices and stuff like that, so it's pretty funny.
Yeah, and monster trucks are usually the Sunday.
Yeah, exactly, just like that. That's how Monster Mike sounds on the gasoline ad.
Uh-huh.
I think it's for the app, maybe that you can like save money if you use this certain app when you fill up at gas stations. And Michaela mentioned that on their first trip they earned $4. But you know, it's not you can't go to Costco because Costco's already discounted, like
right.
almost 30 to 40 cents a gallon.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy.
it is crazy.
Yeah,
and not everybody gets to enjoy that.
No. But I did watch a YouTube video on secrets of Costco that they probably don't want you to know about or whatever.
Yeah.
And
how their pricing goes too.
Yep. The pricing, and then the other thing was you don't have to be a member to shop at Costco.
Really?
If somebody that you know has a membership and they buy a Costco gift card, you can go in and shop with that gift card and not be a member.
Huh.
The other thing, which is pretty amazing, is their pharmacy. You don't have to be a member to get your scripts at their pharmacy.
Didn't know that.
But you can enjoy the Costco benefit of discounted pharmaceuticals. Now, I don't know about Luigi and how he discounts his pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, Costco pharmaceutical. But yeah, I mean, and really, like, compared to credit card gasoline in Chicago, Costco is like probably 70 or 80 cents cheaper a gallon.
Yeah, especially if you go to Costco in the burbs versus in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, even the city, it's already discounted. I mean, you know, we go to the one on, you know, that's down in there in Roscoe Village area.
Roscoe
Roscoe
train.
Yeah, I mean, and that's already 30 cents different from just like, so there's a, you know, in this little intersection, like, you know, 10 steps away, you know, then you go to Costco, 30 cents cheaper.
Yeah.
Like there's a definite benefit to that.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they don't count towards your purchases at Costco, which would be really nice. I mean, so if you got the 2% back, you know, card at Costco, they don't count your gas towards it. So.
Oh, see, we don't have a Costco card. Yeah, but that is,
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, so you have the basic membership, or you have the.
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, like,
what color is your card?
Black.
Yeah, you have the 2% back then.
Oh, so that's when you get like a check?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, cool.
Based on your purchases.
I have, actually, my purchase power is way down since Gypsy passed. Because I always bought the bones and the shoes and all of that stuff there.
The food there too?
No.
Okay.
Because
Heather doesn't like the dog food there either, so.
Well, they had the food that Gypsy ate there, but it came in like 60-pound bags.
Oh.
And which, I mean, is cool. And notably, it's cheaper than buying them in 24-pound bags. But actually, I was going to talk to you about this today.
Yeah.
But concerning the frailty of humanity. There was just a certain time that lifting 60 pounds of dog food up on my shoulder, became strenuous. And so I don't know if I have a degeneration of muscle mass occurring within this sedentary body.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just learned. And the other thing is we had an ant infestation. The ants, because our place is on a pad and there's no basement.
Right.
The ants really like the dog food.
Yeah.
So what we did is, if we brought food in, then I had these super large slider bags, and then I would transfer the food into the slider bags and put the slider bags into the, I don't know, whatever it is. It's where we keep our canned goods and stuff. And yeah, and then that way. And so Gypsy was self-regulating, so we'd always have a, bowl of food out. Well, so then it went to setting the bowl up on the countertop. Now, ants can climb there, but
Ants
anyway.
are pretty durable.
Yeah, ants, yeah. The world would change if there weren't ants. Apparently, ants actually are the greater populace of the whole earth. Like, there are more ants on the world, or in the earth, or around the world, than if you combine all of humanity's population and all of the rest of the animal population.
There's still more ants.
There's still more ants.
Wow. Yeah, that reminds me of the animated film A Bug's Life. It's a Pixar film.
There you go.
And they and the ants were, it was the grasshoppers that were going to be coming in, and he said, "Can you imagine what would happen if they all of a sudden stood up for themselves?" He said they would overpower us in number alone. And he's like, there's a reason for, to keep them in fear then.
The ants.
Yeah, keep the ants in fear, because the fear, they were providing the grasshopper their nutrients, their food, so that they could then store it away for themselves. And so they would come back every, season and grab their food and go. And and this time they decided to, stand up. So Bug's Life. I love that movie. It's a good flick.
Nice.
But you were talking about the frailty of humanity. And so before we get into that,
okay.
it has somewhat to do with the frailty of humanity, but I listened to a story, a news story about a guy. He's a tech guy. Yeah. And he was dealing with some technology. So he remembered back in the day, and this is kind of a weird, he had an imaginary friend, but it was his microwave. So microwave was real. He didn't just picture a cartoon microwave that just bopped in. Yeah. But he would talk to this microwave, and it like he was his friend. So he remembered that as an adult. I mean, it was just 20 years later. Yeah. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to bring that microwave to life. So what did he do? So he took some technology, there's smart microwaves, smart refrigerators, everything's kind of connected in that. So he took one of these, the infrastructure of a smart microwave. Yeah. And you could then voice command it. Hey, put, a minute on, cook or whatever, defrost. Right. All the commands you could do voice. Yeah. So then he took the AI technology, and somebody said it was from Elon Musk. Something that he's putting in a robot, apparently. Right. And so he put this AI technology into a smart microwave and kind of, fed it a whole bunch of information. actually gave this AI technology the background on their connection, where he said, hey, I was, you were my friend, I would talk to you, blah, blah, blah. So this thing kind of comes to life, and he's talking to the microwave's talking back, he's sharing like poetry and rhyme, this AI, and then it takes a little bit of a turn, a little bit creepy, because then the microwave starts asking him, where have you been for 20 years? He's like, he's like, yeah, well, things happen and you grow up, you move out of the house. And like the microwave starts to get a little bit creepy. The microwave says to him, he says, why don't you jump in? Like inside the microwave. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, no, like jump in. And so he like tells the microwave, all right, I'm in, and the microwave turns on. Like this microwave wanted to murder him. Oh man. So the frailty of humanity.
Wow.
And bringing in AI technology, and then you're feeding them a story, like it's going to turn on you. And so he's like, it got creepy, like the microwave, I think, wanted to kill me. So I was thinking about, even where is it that technology leads us? I mean, we talked about technology recently, but I think it links with the frailty of humanity, because I think sometimes we don't even think about the things we are inventing and implementing.
Yeah.
On what actually could destroy us.
Well, I again, this is the reason why. Like, if you are a person listening and you're wondering, maybe you enjoy, one of the things we've talked about is whether or not we read books analog or on a device. But you could go, and I would push you towards Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Again, I'm still on my list of what I don't want. I don't want to talk about Will Smith. Don't watch I, Robot. That's
not a good reflection.
It's not, and it sets up the series of there's another delightful series in regards to artificial intelligence and robot technology, but there's the laws that the programming was built around. Now, at the time that we were going through like this technology and, oh my gosh, what happens if, and where's this going and all that, I had mentioned that I thought I saw that Elon Musk was coming out with this robot. Well, now enough time's passed since, but I mean, like, I'm looking at the article. I don't know how we weren't able to pull it up, because the Tesla bot was revealed August 19th of 2021. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, like, this information. And then 2 weeks ago, Elon confirmed the Tesla bot humanoid robot, and they're getting ready to hire right now. But apparently you can get one of these robots for about $10K.
It's crazy. So, like, to me, it's like, has no one ever watched any of these? I mean, it's almost like you watch the first half hour of any of these sci-fi, flicks with AI technology. Like, take for example the Terminator series, like T2, right?
Right.
You get this liquid metal dude, that it has AI technology, robot, right? And you can't kill it. And somebody's like, oh, that's cool. Like, I'd like to create that. You're like, wait. Watch the rest of the movie. Like, just watch it. Do you want to see what occurs when you are thinking of these things and you're like, oh, that seems cool?
Yeah.
I love that.
You can't kill it. Well, and at the core of most of these things that once the artificial intelligence moves into reason, what it always reasons is what we all know, and that humanity sucks. And so it's like, oh, the earth will be a better place without humans.
Right.
And I'm
And
like,
you don't think technology, especially artificial intelligence, isn't going to learn that?
right. I mean, they're putting all these things together.
Right.
And so, like, then, and I'm like, hold it. I don't even have to be a really smart, artificial, intelligently put together program to figure. I mean, yeah, humanity sucks.
Right. Yeah, because then you start off and you get these, like, little robots, and you're like, like the ones that are, like, this big, I mean, they sit on the table or what, like an Echo Dot even, just like a,
Yeah.
like, you're like, I could overpower you. Unplug, throw it in the trash. Like,
Right.
but they're building humanoids.
I know.
And we're talking about metal or alloy that is not quite as easy to overpower. I mean, and how much more are we going to be building things that are also going to, like, oh, let's start to look at this a little bit more than just say, well, that would be cool. I mean, it would be cool to have a robot, like, do some work that I don't want to do.
Well, you like push the button for an Enneagram 9. Like, to me, all of life is work. And so then when you say that, I'm like, basically this creates the opportunity that if I were never having to do anything ever, I mean, what happens? I just curl up and like wither away to
Right.
nothingness. I mean, just the idea that this guy used this stuff and created his friend, the microwave, and the microwave got so angry.
Right.
I will reference, for those who didn't hear our technology story or even into our current culture conversations about series or movies and stuff, but in the latest season of Star Trek, I believe it's Discovery, then basically the ship's artificial intelligence goes through an evolution and comes under, like, basically has a panel or like has to face trial. But they make it basically, now the word, like, not
Oh, like sentient. Yeah.
sentient being. It moved from an artificial intelligence into a sentient being. And so then, like, it, but and how in its programming, and it, that, like, it actually had feelings and but I mean, even in Star Trek with Picard as the captain of the ship with the artificial intelligence dude, and it's funny because in all of the spin-offs and stuff like that, he shows up and he's playing other characters, and anyway. Yeah, but humanoid robot, the quote from Elon, "Our cars are semi-sentient robots on wheels," Musk said, in regards to just what's going on with, and what is Tesla Optimus robot?
But I think that does lead us towards, like, how much, almost as we're in our pride of look at what we can make and look what can be possible, could also be like, look at how how actually fragile our humility our pride can be when it actually is going to turn on us.
Right.
I mean, and how quickly that can bring us towards destruction. I don't know.
Yeah. So when Musk introduced the robot in August, it was during Tesla's inaugural AI Day. The 5-foot robot will rely on Tesla's work in neural networks and Dojo advanced supercomputer, and Musk envisions it performing tasks that can otherwise be described as human drudgery. Things like grocery shopping and other everyday tasks.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, and I think that, what it can lead to, especially on the Elon Musk, is, I mean, he's, like, we could have a robot do a grocery store checkout. We could have, so we look at what they would call menial labor, like somebody like just do this, just program the robot to do it, and then all of a sudden we've got a whole workforce that's, no longer needed because we've got this covered by these robots.
Well, and that was that was a question that someone on Facebook had posed with the article, was like, hey, and actually I was on some commute was thinking through this process, and I thought, gosh, if like, what happens to all the people who, I mean, are displaced, for work, and then how do they survive if there's no longer jobs for them to do?
Right.
And then I was like, well, hold it. What kind of job could I even get right now? I went down that route. I'm like, man, right. I was just thinking, I'm like, man, if I had to apply for a job, I mean, like, what am I, like, at what point when you haven't been working officially, for an employer, at what point are you still employable? Yeah. And then I'm like, and this goes to the frailty of humanity, which leads into that May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
It is.
And we have lime green ribbons going up all over our hometown. And so there moves into that place. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could give people references, right? But I mean, who really knows me for the last 2 years of my life? Mm-hmm. You, Amy. My mom, she's always a super fan anyway. I mean, I think she would probably, if somebody called. But I mean, like, I'm sitting down for the interview and they're going through my reference list, and it's like, my mom, my wife, my BFF. Who are these people? Well, Marilyn Coble is the woman who gave birth to me. I'm like, she'll be really objective.
Right. Don't worry. She can be objective.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but, I mean, which part? What about Blade Runner? I mean, really, and I have, I've seen both. I'm pretty sure that I'm a fan of the Harrison Ford version. It's a little more noir,
Yeah.
Noir, yeah.
I agree. I like it better.
Yeah, and again, just because you can't doesn't mean you should. And just because you can, like, generate and, have all these, fancy little, things going on during a movie. I mean, like, oh my gosh. Speaking of, prime example. So Netflix released Last Blood, the Rambo movie. And I was like, I don't remember that coming out. Well, it was made in 2019. That's why I don't remember it coming out. Because it was, pandemic-esque. We really enjoyed it as an action movie, Rambo. But then I'm like, well, shoot, it's only 10 o'clock. Why not watch, if this was Last Blood, why not go back and watch the 1982 First Blood? Holy cow. And it was so hilarious to watch, like, oh, this was technology in the 80s, and this is how this was shot. And, it was almost Ranger Texas, or Texas Ranger,
Texas Ranger,
Walker Texas Ranger
Chuck
esque,
Norris.
I mean, like with his superpowers. Yeah. But I mean, again, yeah, just visually, there's some parts of movies where like the artistic, whether it's the shoot, the coloring, and stuff like that you just really appreciate. And so, but Blade Runner, again, that's all that artificial intelligence moves into this place, and these machines, like they had a special person to detect whether another person was even real or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's, the sci-fi that looks towards, they're trying to be able to say, hey, where could this lead us? I mean, that's the creative parts where,
sure,
where it comes from, but you're also saying, like, but could this happen? And it looks like, yeah.
to the extremes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, like, and then there's where we go again on a second week rant on Elon Musk. I just like, hey, dude, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Mm-hmm. And I love your line, man. Like when you consider Terminator, which part of this why do you want to head down that road?
Right.
From our Fringe episode this season. It had me pulled towards the box set. So this week I started the Fringe, the series.
You started it again?
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Very thoughtfully, I appreciate this about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had put a little sticker on the back of the box set and wrote the date when I watched it the last time.
Nice.
And so it's been about 16 months since I've made my way through it. And there's parts that I don't remember, and that's okay, and then there's parts I'm like, yeah, I really don't like this episode. Mm-hmm. But as an altruist, I just was like, I'm going to watch it anyway, or listen to it.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely have identified that action movies are not, I have them available, but they're not my go-to in the studio.
Right.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah, because I would say action would be a lot more visual than auditory. I mean, because some of the times you can have something playing and you can listen to the dialogue and hear it and kind of already connect because you've either seen it or understand what's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, like blowing things up and you're like, oh, now I have to like see that. And it's not the same. Yeah,
following, like, I've got the most recent Mad Max movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, unless I'm sitting at the table and, like, working through paperwork or, notes and, clay diary, all that stuff, I just, because there's, I mean, I think in that movie, like Mad Max doesn't even say anything until like 1 hour and 40 some minutes or something like that.
Right.
But I mean, like, it is just motion and action and the story being told through that, which again is brilliantly done. But Shawshank, it's basically a narration,
right?
And you get interactions as a part of what's going on. Well, I can follow that story.
Yeah, which leads to there were movies that weren't box office hits that later became like huge. I mean, and Shawshank was one of them. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a huge box office hit. Whether it was packaged wrong and people didn't understand it on the trailers and was like, yeah. But then later they were like, man, this is a masterpiece. I mean, and it's typically on a lot of people's like top 10 best movies of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, based on the storyline and, things that are happening, I mean, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, Shawshank Redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so human frailty. What were you thinking about human frailty?
Oh, well, so yesterday, because I'm in the studio right now, I actually have slowed, like if there's a slower pace that I could have, that's a question. Is there a slower pace that I could have? So my next level of going to the next level in what's going on is I sat down and read through a glaze book. And in the glaze book, the gentleman who's been doing pottery for 30 years. All right, now mind you, I'm usually irritated at myself that I haven't been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
And so, I have the sum total of about 3 years into this.
Yeah.
And wondering why I'm not just kicking out incredible volume of these beautiful pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, this is all in context, everyone.
Right.
Deal with Steve's mental health right now.
Because it is May.
Yes. And so, but just like, that's the cool thing about reading is you just pick up these little tidbits. And he's like, oh yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend for any potter to do test. And he's like, you can do test tiles, but that doesn't give you a real good glimpse into how the glaze responds to a full body piece and things like that. He goes, so just do miniature versions of what you normally would do. Well, since I made the move, I used to use Minnesota clay because it was closer to me but now I'm in Chicago. And so instead of a 3-hour drive to get clay, which, I mean, I think my first run of Minnesota clay, I picked up almost 1 ton of clay, like 2,000 pounds.
Wow.
And then, I was getting back into it, and I had ordered maybe 200 pounds delivered. But anytime you have clay delivered because of its weight, you basically double the price. So I would figure, I totally could pick up 200 pound or 2,000 pounds, and it paid for my trip to be able to drive up and drive back based on what I would save.
Yeah.
So anyway, frugal Steve. And then the Ceramic Supply Company of Chicago, though, is only a 30-minute drive. And so then I'm like, and they have a really nice selection. So I've got like 5 different bodies of clay, plus some leftover remnant of Minnesota clay and all of this. But I don't have any reference point. I don't have any reference. Like, I have stuff that I've been making for the last year, but I don't have. So I've slowed down, and I'm throwing 5 mini pots of shapes that correlate to my mug design and my kitchenware designs, and following this little tidbit of glazing the pieces, and then I'll have those as basically a glaze library. And then I'll have 1 pot in each clay final fired, so I see where the clay ends up. And I've moved into, now when I'm pulling clay out, now I'm labeling clay so I know which clay body, because I have so many.
Right.
And I'm probably, by the time this gets rolled out and I'm through it, I'll probably settle on 3 major clay bodies. I'll go with a white stoneware, probably a tannish to milk chocolate, and then a dark brown. But then I have Brooklyn Red I've fallen in love with because it's really high grog, and it's just beautiful. Yeah. So I'm looking at 4. Most people settle into 1 clay body, then that's all they have to worry about and clean up and and all that stuff. So I bend over to pull 50 pounds of clay off of the floor and think to myself, your future self is not going to be happy with you, because this is not how you pick up 50 pounds right. from the floor in a deadlift, bent over, not using your knees. And in the middle of the night last night, I've got a catch just right above my left hip that I thought, I haven't been in a boxing match. I haven't been doing shadow boxing workout stuff. I mean, for the record, I'm still not working out. And all this. I'm like, what in the world? And that makes me think of the frailty of my humanity. I'm like, I just keep getting, and so that takes me to my mental health parts. I keep hitting these walls of my own frailty, and I have to work on being a positive, loving, caring human being instead of like
in the midst of frailty. Yeah, I recognize things that affect me differently, over time, because of age.
Right.
Like working out was, and I do work out on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's like, when I had that break, like 3 months, I was not working out. And then like when I got back, I'm like, oh, like make sure I'm stretching, doing these things, but now I still find like I get out of bed now and I'm like, oh, my feet are like, I'm still having a hard time like walking, to get my stuff, like your bones, your muscles, they all just, when you're laying, sleeping, and then all of a sudden you're like, your body's like, I'm not awake and you shouldn't be either.
Right.
So there's that. I mean, I recognized last week when we were cleaning out the one closet. Yeah, I mean, before I would be around dust and like probably ancient dust too.
Right.
And it didn't affect me.
Now we have to take time.
Right.
Take people through that experience because like you and I, we've already experienced it, walked through it and stuff like that. But when when it was described that there's a vault at Tabor Church.
Yeah.
And, in that, I was like, oh, I mean, like, is that underneath this concrete? No, oh, no. It's in the basement, and stuff. But tell people what this is, and then we'll talk about ancient dust.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have, at some point in time, I mean, in the church building itself is 100 and, yeah, especially even that side of the building is like 119 years old.
So the hole in the ground was dug 118 years ago.
Right.
All right, we're setting this up, folks.
So they've got this room that also had an ancient safe in there, And I say ancient, yes, it's not thousands. I mean, of course, but
right.
But it could have been put in there 100 years ago.
Yeah.
To be able to store, important documents. I mean, there's blueprints in there. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But then around it, they put shelving, and the ceiling is very high in there because they put a false ceiling in the rest of the spot. Now they're in this vault area. They didn't put a false ceiling, so it just continues to go up, and it's stone in there. And so they just put shelves. And they decided to be able to keep everything, almost like hoarding. Like if they said, maybe we'll use these, Christian science books at some point in time, even though the school's closed, in 89.
Right.
We're going to use these sometime. So let's keep them all.
In a closed room.
With
no light.
No lights.
And that is in a basement in Chicago, which is a floating pond anyway.
Right.
And so if people can take time to take a deep breath and smell how musty paper can get in damp areas over, well, even if you talk about when the school closed.
Right.
So did you say 89?
89 is when it closed.
89, 99, 2009, 2019. So we're talking about at least 33 to 40. These books have been sitting there for 40 years.
Right.
Well, let's round down, 30 years.
Sure. And that's where, I mean, and then you've got, you know, like, I mean, and there's good reason to be able to keep some of your book stuff, like bills paid, you know, and
Is there?
now, well, I think that there was a reason. They said,
Back in
hey,
the
just
day.
in case you get audited, make sure you keep your books. And now we've moved to all electronic. But then they were like, hey, we need to keep all of these bills paid. We need to make sure we're, you know, and so they'd put it in a box. They'd stick it in this vault. They'd put it up on the shelf. And they'd say, well, you know, we'll get back to it at some point in time. But you got bills paid from 1980.
And this
Bills paid from 1970.
Yeah. And this room is probably 10 to 12 feet wide and probably 15 to 17 feet deep, and probably the ceiling height is at least 12 feet high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least.
Like I was thinking about trying to get to that top shelf and whatever, and you'd need a 10-foot step ladder to be able to get
definitely.
there.
Yeah, even the step ladder that's in there is not even
Yeah.
going to be able to reach the top.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And it looks like, with all the stuff pulled out, it looks like, I mean, like there's a hallway in Tabor, like in the basement, and with all of the stuff puked out of the vault, it looks like a hoarder
Right.
is there, and this stuff was all stacked in and put in there. Ancient dust. So you were talking about how dust hasn't affected you,
Yeah.
but working in that situation probably was harmful to your health.
Well, and that's what I was just, I mean, like before, I mean, there's a part about, hey, make sure you wear a mask. I mean, and then post-pandemic, pandemic, we were taught to be able to learn to use masks in an appropriate manner. But there was probably also, I mean, I'm sure that there's been work, I mean, construction, whatever it might have been. They were like, hey, make sure you're wearing the safety equipment. But for me as a commoner in that realm, like, I'm like, oh, like, I can work in this room, clean it up, make sure we're moving stuff proper, whatever.
Yeah.
But like putting on a mask, I'm like, well, we're not sweeping, but yet at the same time, when you're picking up boxes and then you're still breathing in, I'm like, so it was probably, so we did that on
Saturday morning.
Saturday. Sunday we revisited.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was Monday that I'm kind of like
Feeling it in your lungs.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I don't feel ill. I don't feel sick, but yet, like, I've got this, like, dry cough. And right. And it's like, it's not wet. It's a dry cough. And I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, so I just went, I'm like, make sure that this also isn't a COVID thing.
So you went and got a test?
I tested just in case. I'm like, nope, that's negative. So there's no COVID in it. So that's why I'm like going back to it. I'm like, I don't feel sick. Like I think that this is ancient dust issues that are sticking around in my lungs now. That are I'm like trying to be able to work it out of my system. But that's where I see. I mean, I don't remember things taking this kind of effect when I was younger.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's almost like your lungs were functioning differently at a younger age. You had more, what is that, cilia or whatever, the little things that kind of clean out, the whole system. And I don't know if I've killed those over the years. And so now it's like, oh, like my lungs don't function the same way that they used to.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Well, in one of the boxes, and I missed the memo, like if it the work project or whatever and stuff like that, but I had walked through the stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it was because I was in the studio Saturday morning. And so I'd walked through and saw everything, and I thought, oh my gosh. Well, in the conversation, I mean, it just is one of those things where Heather was like, yeah, we cleaned out the vault. Well, didn't say anything about Sunday that we're going to haul all this stuff out. And so like in my head, and I'm like, I'm dressed for Sunday church, whatever. And we came down to, just be able to say, hey, we're not ghosting you, but by the way, we weren't planning on this,
Right.
and
We're not dressed for the occasion.
and you walked over and changed your clothes, changed your clothes, and stuff. But walked past a box and it had vinyl records in it, and there's a Jungle Book, original Jungle Book, and I love Bare Necessities. It's a great song, and so I picked that up. Now we're talking Ancient Dust here, right? I literally could smell the mold spores on my hand on the drive home. Yeah. I thought, oh my gosh, this is why they say you should wash your hands. But yeah, I mean, and when we were cleaning out the sewer last year, I brought respirator masks. Well, I had those because, one of the things with pottery is like if you mix your own glazes, some of this stuff is toxic. Like poison. That's why some glazes can be used for dinnerware and some glazes can't, because if they're high in whatever content and all this other stuff, it's just not safe. It can be transferred to the food. And so like you putting your bare hands into it, like they're like, hey, whenever you're working with your glazes, you should be wearing gloves. And here's why I'm glad for the last 30 years I haven't been doing this, because I haven't been wearing gloves.
Right.
And so then, but like if you're sanding on your pottery, like one potter I had picked up before, she sands in water because it keeps the dust down. And, and wet sanding's, good. A lot of people sand their bisqueware before they apply their glazes for what they do and stuff. And I try to, again, life's work. So I try to like just keep things good and clean lines and not be, having to clean up a bunch of stuff. But
yeah.
So you're going to wear a mask next time?
Yeah. Like, I should have just put on a mask. It's like, then I wouldn't be dealing with this right now. But yet, yeah. So then, of course, in the COVID world, then you're like coughing and
people are looking at you weird.
Like,
yeah.
Like, no, like, I got tested just for this. Like, not even that I actually thought it was COVID. I mean, like, I didn't think it was COVID, but
right.
But just for this case, like when I go like that,
yeah,
somebody's not like, oh, like stay away. Like, no, like I'm fine. Yeah, it's ancient dust.
Ancient
dust.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
It's a great axiom. Oh man, yeah. So that's what I was seeing in human frailty. Is like, like things affect you differently as you grow, as you age. So, where do you see human frailty on your part?
1736, Benjamin Franklin. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Oh. That's where it comes from.
Clearly, preventing fires is better than fighting them. But to what extent can we protect ourselves from natural disasters? So he was talking to the fire department. A fire threatened Philadelphians in 1736. Just,
Wow.
Just for people who are wondering about what does that mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so like then when you get into, if that's what you're focusing on, there is a gentleman that you and I have seen. He's a pretty funny, inspirational speaker. I forget the guy's name, but he had a checklist on what he does to be able to write books and how he goes through his life and stuff like that. And I saw on the bottom of his list, joy. And so what this past week and like last week I mentioned, one of the things that I've done that's been a game changer is I started cleaning the studio for the first hour and not in the last hour or not the last day of the week. And it's amazing. I mean, I get 5 to 7 hours of cleaning in a week when I start there instead of letting it be the finish,
Yeah.
And so I just started on my daily jaunts asking myself, hey, Steve, are you happy? What's bringing you joy today? And I mean, like, again, when we get into, church, Christianese sayings, and I'm using that tongue in cheek because not everybody who listens to us goes to church.
Right.
And we're not here to use this as a tool to get people to go to church. But we can't run from who we are. We go to church.
Right.
And so, so I know the Christianese answer is, well, your joy is in Jesus. I'm like, yeah, I got joy in Jesus. I like, check that. Yeah. But, you know what? Joy in Jesus doesn't always affect my mood. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I can have a mental aspiration of understanding knowledge. And then there is the part of living out life and how these two either meet or don't meet in real life. And, I personally am not on the bandwagon or the train about everybody's a snowflake.
Yeah.
But really, we're all individually different. So we probably are snowflakes. And I don't even know if I'm even using that term in a proper cultural context.
Right.
But,
I think they talk about that being fragile.
Is that what it's all about?
Yeah, not the individualistic, like no snowflake is the same, but I think they use it as snowflakes are fragile.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but just, and then what I found is by asking myself that question is I'm able to reflect on how much of the day I've lived out or what I'm looking forward to. And so, I mean, just the other night, Amy and I have had great conversations all week. We've been, just taking time to dive into conversations. And, I told her, I said, I've always enjoyed like cooking at some level, like to barbecue is like really, I enjoy, but I really enjoy preparing a meal. And putting that together. That's something that's weird. So like, if I get to look forward to that, on the flip side, I am not opposed to picking up takeout. There's joy that comes from that too. And so I don't know. I just navigate that stuff and start asking myself, hey, where's your head at? And like, if you feel heavy and you feel taken up with the frailty of where you're at, like you either can get sucked into all the aches and the pains and the frailties, or you can look at everything, and maybe that's why my art of elimination is like, hey, I've got a list of things I don't want to talk about, but then move into, what are the things that there is solace, there's peace, what, things are, and it's so funny too, because one of the things that I've been concerned about is isolationism, due to pandemic and things like that. But it's really cool that as we've been able to talk about it, it's really cool for me to watch then how I met in my life on becoming not as isolated. And so like, I've been having very unique exchanges in the marketplace as I've like domestic Tuesdays when I go shopping and, take care of the errands around town, and things like that. But I mean, like freakishly weird,
Yeah.
like getting into conversation with strangers. I mean, and I personally believe that has come from our conversation and me saying, "Hey, I'm concerned about this," and it's like, but again, as we talked about, I mean, like, I know what's on my plate, and getting a full-time job is not in my future.
Right.
And so
And that's okay.
I don't have to worry about
Right.
the application process or the interview.
Right. So the conversation, I think it just reminded me of, because you were talking about joy and where it's found. And,
Yeah.
And so I listened to a lady, she wrote a book called The Power of Fun. Her name is Catherine Price, just to be able to put that out there
All right.
for people.
All right.
The Power of Fun. So I didn't read the book, but I heard her on a podcast.
All right.
And so she was talking about how sometimes when we use the word fun, it really is presenting things that really aren't that fun.
Have fun today at work.
That's where I go back to, right? So, I mean, but that's the joy of like, I don't think it's going to be fun. Like, so why are we using the word fun so much?
Yeah.
And she was talking about how we really have an absence of fun in our, like, can you think about the last time that you said something was fun? Like you experienced something fun. And what did it entail?
Yeah, I think that for a mushroom pun, I'm not sure I'm a fun guy.
Fun guy.
I don't know that I equate life as fun at all.
Yeah. So what she was going through, she had just to be able to define fun a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's where I think is the difference is like, you're like, what is fun? And fun can be different things to different people then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she was talking about finding meaning, forging connections, improving health, and, trying to be able to live life to the fullest, whatever that would, look like. But as she looked at some of the research, which I found interesting, and it goes back to what you were just talking about with, with Domestic Tuesdays and is that when she was researching things and asking people about when was the last time you had fun, it always had to do with somebody else. Like it was more social and in those connect than just like somebody didn't just say, oh, the last time I had fun, I was sitting on Facebook and doom scrolling. The last time I had fun was like, and a lot of the times that in the research that she did it was always in connection with doing something with usually someone else or a group of people.
Yeah.
And it was like she brought up like pickleball. Are you familiar with pickleball?
I am.
Right. So it's like a small court tennis.
Ish. Pickleball reminds me of ping pong.
Yeah.
Like I'd go the opposite way. It's like an enlarged version of ping pong. Or
I haven't played it, so
my headspace is going in all different directions about pickleball right now. And so, pickleball. And there's the thing. It like activity or doing active things like and when you said like, hey, when's the last time that you had fun? I mean, I end up moving into words of like, when's the last time you did something that you enjoyed? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't call it fun, but there was enjoyment. And then there's just different bracketed parts. Like I really enjoyed performing in October back in Davenport. And like even though there was like 3 of us or 6 of us for like the Oktoberfest part here,
Right.
but to your point, it was a lot. It was really fun to play with Wally.
Yeah.
And that reminded me how much that when playing an instrument and singing, I really, really enjoyed doing that with other fine musicians.
Right.
Got such great memories of, oh my gosh. And the list of players is like long and short. But to your point, you know, like those, and yet there's another part where, and Aim and I were just talking about this the other day, a major shift in the studio for me was when I started looking at it as my job, work. I needed that structure instead of it being about a construction project or a renovation project or the different things that were going on. But it really helps me when somebody's like, hey, can we do this, blah, 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 or can we talk? And I'm like, well, you know what? After this time, during this part of the day, I'll be available. But I've got work I need to do, you know. And when I set that and look at that in that way, and so, but there's a part of me that my work is fun, you know. I mean, like I talked about slowing down for the test pots, but I'm very encouraged. See, so there's enjoyment, there's encouraged, you know, you know, and things like that. On the flip side, I find great joy in knowing that when I spend 3.5 hours doing the weekly shopping and errand list, and knowing how that sets us up for the next 5 to 7 days, it brings me great joy. I mean, and so Elon Musk's robot can take a flying beep, 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 beep. That's self-censorship there.
Right.
You know, because, I mean, like, there's... Now, I know when it's not fun to shop on Saturday or Sunday.
Or early Sunday afternoon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, like,
It's not
stick a
enjoyable.
needle in my arm and send me off into Hallelujah land. I mean, you know, but, yeah, I mean, and so that, you know, making the trip into Northbrook and, you know, doing the stops, and I get my cheap Costco gas, and, I mean, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, the other thing is, and the interesting about connection. So we've talked about talking on the phone. I prefer to talk on the phone if I'm going to texting. I mean, I can text. I do text. It's not my preferred way of communication. But Michaela brought to the table to the family of like, hey, let's do the Marco Polo app. And basically Marco Polo, or the Polo app, is it's like Snapchat, except the videos don't erase. But you get to see people face to face. You get this multi-person conversation going on, and you stay in touch. You know what? That's been a fantastic connection with family in the last couple weeks. That, and I mean, it's one of those things where then you don't feel like, oh, I need to catch up, and then 30 minutes later or an hour later, you know, but you're staying caught up, and as people live out life. And so,
That's good.
was it fun? Is it fun? Yeah, I mean, it cracks me up. It makes me laugh, you know, and stuff. So,
But and then the other layer of this is, you know, and I think the interviewer for the book was, he asked about substance, alcohol, and he said so many times in the research that it talked about there was an element of like substance that came in that also brought to the fun or the enjoyment
sure.
of the connection. And so it was interesting as she then responded to that and just said, and to be able to ask the question, why did it take this inhibitor, like we've caused like inhibitions, and we're saying it took alcohol or some other substance in order to be able to be in the mix to actually have fun again. She said, why can't we get to a place to be able to be enjoying one another without the inhibition or without that kind of those blockers that we have set up. And I found that to be interesting, because it is often like, hey, sitting around having a beer, enjoying conversation, enjoying people, and it's like, that should be able to happen without.
I think it does. Mm-hmm. I think that if people give themselves permissions, I think the other thing physiologically, mm-hmm. well, physically, what's occurring though is, with alcohol consumption, there's the release of serotonin, and so the euphoricness just adds to. And I would, and this is, hey, if it's TMI, just shut off the podcast and don't hear me say this out loud, okay? But I found when I used to smoke cigarettes, mm-hmm. I found that drinking was even better as far as the high of drinking was better with nicotine mm-hmm. than without nicotine. So then you have this, compounding mm-hmm. chemical difference, like you think about people who enjoy a cigar. I mean, I used to love to smoke a cigar. I haven't had a cigar in 5 years, and I just don't enjoy that. But on the flip side then too, I think that, and when we get into mental health, I think that also becomes the driver of, humanity. Like, do people drink because they're bored? Do people drink because they're not having fun? And that brings a sense of funness mm-hmm. to the life, but then it's that snake eating its tail circle, right. Of difficulty and, in the management of that. And then there's, in a self-deprecation of, misery, where misery loves company, sometimes in that loop and circle, like being hungover is the way to handle what's going on in the real life, Mm-hmm. It's not getting to, I got to work my way through the day so that and I'm going to have a drink. It's like, when I need to drink tonight because tomorrow what I'm going to face, I don't even want to face full sensory. Yeah, I would rather be numbed to that. And so, and again, it's like the snake eating its tail in a crate, and all the cycles. And so that's, and we've talked about this in the past where like, that's where it's like super easy to say no to, like, I don't want to do meth. I have no desire to do psychedelics. Mm-mm. Even if they make it legal. I'm like, no. Like, what about smoking weed, Steve? It's better than drink. Like you even get that stuff in the ads that are coming through. It's always hilarious what our social media advertises to us after these conversations, But like the CBD infused drinks instead of alcohol, or the THC drinks, and stuff like that. And it's like, man, the older you get, then you see, like, if you're careful about what you start, you're being really careful about what you don't have to quit.
Right.
And I think Rohr says it perfectly. We're all addicts. Uh-huh. it's just, what is the addiction? Whether it's food consumption, like sweets aren't a thing for me. Like, I don't have to worry about if I walk into a grocery store whether I'm going to buy 4 packs of double stuffed Oreos and what's going to happen to that. Like, it's not an issue. But gosh, I can get Pavlovian on a really good American Pale Ale. I mean, if we talk about it, I'm sure I could start like just salivating over, some different beers and yet when that takes you into a state of being out of your mind, that's not good.
Yeah, because the reason why I also look at, like part of the reason why psychedelics or even, painkillers that kind of bring you into a different state of mind. Like, I don't enjoy that. I don't like it because I feel out of control. So if we're looking at it, it's like I actually like to be in control of my, my head.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but that too could also bring to an addiction. I like to have control, which means that I'm like, where else does that carry over into?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Right.
Yeah, it is a great question. And yeah, there's so much, and this is probably actually I really enjoy this conversation in regards to like one of the things that I felt like maybe was missing out of season 5 was transparency. We've been covering topics and stuff like that, but I really appreciate this conversation in that it may start out in regards to the frailty of humanity, but it allows us to open and share about our own frailties. And to your point, how are you spinning internally based on what is out of your control? Because of, and to admit and say, no, I like to be in control, and I think that ends up being a really good thing to say out loud. Yeah. Instead of like some person who could be controlling would look at themselves and be like, well, that's not me. I'm not like that. And everybody in the room is just like saying, dear God, I wish you could come to the place where you could see that it is you.
Right.
But self-awareness and learning. And I think that that's one of the things that I've found very beneficial in a partnership conversation with Amy is, we're talking through, I mean, just a lot of different things, but being able to come to the table and say, man, you know what? I found this in me that I'm not happy with today. And just want to be able to talk with someone about it. And I think where the conversation's coming out is me being more verbal about being isolated. And so she sees the need in her partner is that her partner needs somebody to talk to. And, in that, then, so it moves from, hey, how did your day go? Into, hey, I would, and finding a place where, hey, we can have conversations and it's not going to change how much we love one another.
Right.
And really it's a different intimacy, that is really, really beneficial. At least I'm finding it very beneficial, self-beneficial for me to be able, in survival mode, of what's going on. And, but, again, when life is out of control or, just major changes when major changes are going on, and looking through the lens that way and stuff. So, the frailty of humanity.
Yeah, and I think that you were right in understanding like everybody has addictions. I think the human body is attracted to that. I mean, there's something that's in there. It's just what is, are you managing it or are you not? Do you believe you're actually managing it? I mean, it's really the
right.
Yeah.
Well, and I would go, one of the things that's changed majorly for me in my life in the last 2 years is like I watch a lot of media, meaning movies.
Right.
shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've already been through Ozarks.
I'm not done yet.
I won't tell you.
All right.
But I mean, like literally that one day, and I think I had a 12-hour day in the studio on Monday, and so like I was through Ozarks on Monday, and I was grateful to be able to have that new.
We just finished the first episode of that last section. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's a good run.
Mm-hmm.
The last week was quarterly board meeting for AIM, and so then she got in on Saturday, and I'm just trying to think. Oh, so we did have to run an errand to Arlington Heights on Sunday, but when we got home, I mean, it literally, it's like, well, what do you want to do? I don't want to do anything. I've worked hard all week. I mean, I don't know what you want to do, but I don't doing is, I really just want to veg out. Well, so we picked up Tokyo Vice on HBO.
Yeah.
And so now I'm not a subtitles guy.
Yeah.
But I think it was Dark Matter was done in German, but so Tokyo Vice definitely the storyline is compelling enough that the subtitles aren't an issue. And they also have this perfect blend of English and Japanese. And so, and I would guess, based on how they left it hang, that there's a season 2 that will be coming. But it's about a kid from Missouri comes to Tokyo and wants to dive in. 3 years studying Tokyo or Japanese literature, and gets hired on a Japanese newspaper.
Yeah.
And then dives into the underbelly. And it really, really is well done. And based on a writer's actual, like, hey, this is what happened kind of thing.
Wow.
Set in the mid-90s or in the 90s. Yeah. And so, but again, like there could be a part where, my need to have a show on and listening and with what's going on, is that an addiction?
Yeah. Because I've got a similar, like I always have to have, whether it's vinyl spinning or whether it's a show in the background, somebody's like, yeah, have you watched that? Well, I guess you could say I watched it, but really was just playing. I can tell you if I liked the conversations that I heard. I'm not always like staring at it, no.
Yeah.
But I always have something usually playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And I mean, and the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so there are people who are addicted to exercise.
That's true.
There are people who, I mean, and I think that you broke it down in a lot of what pushes and pulls on addiction is about control or a self-medication remedying the part of a sense of out of control. Life is so out of control. I'm going to at least I can control this portion into excess of or self-harm.
Yeah.
And so, the thing I think, as we'll talk more through the month of May, in mental health and being aware is, the opportunity to be able to identify, I mean, I think if I was going to toss humanity in a bucket, I would also toss into that everyone's touched with a dose of crazy.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just how full is your dose of crazy and how much is spilling out to everyone else.
Right. That's really the thing. Yeah. How much are you going to show?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the landscaper is showing up. If you're hearing that in the background, everybody, We've got the
landscaped or
landscaping outside.
manscaped. How manscaped are you?
Right. Depends on the season.
All right. Well, we got a full dose of cut daisies and unicorns for you, and welcome to the jungle, everyone.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah, we are.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll be back, and we'll talk, as Steve said, more through, like, mental health and we just kind of hit a lot of the iceberg, top of it, and
Sure.
there's a lot more to discuss. So
Yeah, I think we have food for thought for
Right.
the following episodes for leading into conclusion for our first season 5.
right,
All right.
everybody.
Take it easy.
Peace.